not a threat to NATO. That's what I would like to see, and I hope the president makes that decision soon.
Yeah, thanks, Colby. I think it was a great answer. Michelle, we can go to Hans.
Wow, we have a lot of hands up now. This is great. So we're going to go to Dan, then it's Bali and Enda.
There's a lot of conversation about what Putin does or doesn't know and what orders Putin is or isn't giving. But in terms of what Ukraine can affect, Ukraine just needs to increase its volume of communication. And by volume of communication, I mean trains full of zinc coffins. Because that seems to be the only form of communication Russia understands. So if one train today isn't getting it done, we need to try 4. And Jake Sullivan sitting around the White House trying to titrate exactly how much aid Ukraine gets is in grave danger of going down next to Lyndon Johnson in terms of thinking too much and fighting too little. They need to send Ukraine everything that can physically be moved and end this thing. And hopefully the Russians will see the wave coming and get the point and leave. And if they don't, well, they can fertilize sunflowers. But it just, this boil the frog thing needs to stop. We need to try blowing the pot out of the building.
Yeah, thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
All right, great points. Sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
No, I was just going to say great points and 100% agree. Sorry, Joseph, are you going to say something?
No, just my dog's going a little crazy. Who's next?
It's Bali guy.
Hey, so if I can quickly add to the previous point. So I think Gary Kasparov put out a tweet which said, like, when you're dealing with cancer, you don't do like proportionate treatment. You have to overwhelm so that, you go with like overwhelming strength to like kill the cancer right at the root instead of like try to proportionately cure it because it's going to metastasize. But my other question was actually around like the sanctions. So initially, like when I saw videos coming out like of Russian supermarkets, people running out of sugar and fighting over sugar and things like that, and I was hoping or expecting that at some point people are going to feel the pain. The supermarkets are not going to be stocked up, and that's when things could like really turn. But that looks like that has not materialized. So if somebody can just shed some light on that. Thank you.
Well, they just kidnapped at least 300,000 people. I think that might start causing some problems, but I don't know. I think it's a good question. I don't know if it ultimately will, if it's a reliable metric or not in terms of the health of. Obviously bear shells would not be good, but I don't know if that's what we have to see in order for this to understand this thing's working. It's certainly not my area, though. I hate to sort of push Colby any further here, but he's sort of our I would say the best speaker on sanctions right now. Colby, any thoughts on just that generally? I understand if maybe you're a bit tired and sick tonight. Totally get it.
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm still here. I'll tap out when I have to. I can suffer through a little cold here. People in Ukraine are going through worse. Yeah, so I just finished saying that I don't think that sanctions are the correct route to go at this stage. It's more important that we just escalate the amount of military aid being delivered. But again, if there is a desire to escalate with sanctions further, the nuclear option is on the table. But the nuclear option is the nuclear option, and imposing secondary sanctions on Russia and forcing all the other countries in the world to either choose to do business with Russia or do business with the United States, that's a very consequential decision. that has very significant, far-reaching ramifications, and that's the reason why it hasn't been taken so far. And I don't blame the Biden administration for not taking that step because, the biggest problem with politicians is that they do not think through the unintended consequences of their policies. And this is a policy that would have vast, vast, vast consequences for America's relations with all the other countries on the planet. So I'm not lobbying in favor of the United States or any other country imposing secondary sanctions on Russia. I think they should just send ATACMS and send more military aid that Ukraine can put to use. That's the correct response here, in my mind.
Yeah, thanks, Cole. We definitely appreciate that answer and appreciate you toughing it out. Michelle?
So we have Anda with her hand up next.
I'm sorry. I need to take a break. Short. Go to Adrian and I like Wendy. I think they had the hand up also.
Yeah, I think it was MS first and then Adrian.
Oh, hey, hi. I just wanted to respond. It goes back several callers now that was asking about the difference between what was meant by the statement economic sanctions versus individual sanctions. And I'm certainly no expert, but I believe what I heard that was meant by individual sanctions was targeting some of the oligarchs, so landlocking them into preventing them from getting into other countries, etc. And with that, having said that, I am wondering if anyone knows the current status, the location of Putin's daughters. Last time I asked this question was a couple months ago, and they were not in Russia. And if they continue to enjoy Western democracies, living in a Western democracy while Ukrainians are slaughtered, I would find that appalling. And, I don't wish ill on anyone, but I think that Putin's own kids need to be at home where and suffer the consequences of his father's decision, because a father is more inclined to make different decisions when it impacts his own family. But I am just wondering if anyone knows where his children are currently residing.
Yeah, so as far as I know, so Putin had a secret child, I guess you could say. It's not really publicly acknowledged in official Russian propaganda, but I think it was like a dancer or a gymnast or something. He was involved with, and as far as I understand, they would go to Switzerland and stuff. That's probably where she is now, as far as I remember, but. Yeah, that's my best guess about where Putin's Putina, I believe it's Maria Putina or something. I know maybe a month or two ago, there was like a leak of like some stuff she said on social media. I don't know if that was ever totally verified or not, but I don't know. She's a piece of work, I guess. That's all I really have to say about it. Yeah, I think that's all I have, unfortunately.
I thought he had 5 children.
Yeah, I don't know much detail about the rest. All I know is Putina, she's like involved in medical stuff. She was going to do like some high-end surgery. She wanted to make Russia kind of a medical tourism thing. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, MS.
Right. I do recall that. And I thought I heard summer in the US. Anyways, it blows my mind that they're not banished, honestly.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's baffling. There's also, a general recently, and it was like their kid was just in the U.S., like a student at some university or something. Anyway, yeah, my Twitter is causing me problems. My microphone button is currently stuck on, so I'm gonna go ahead and restart.
Thanks, Joseph. I guess he's leaving me here alone for a little bit. Anyways, we have Adrian that's up next.
Wendy was definitely before me.
Oh,
I saw
sorry.
him.
Oh, I like Wendy. Go ahead.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Joseph, and Michelle for co-hosting, and thank you, Adrian. I was thinking. I mean, there was a discussion on this space yesterday, and one of the earlier speakers got me thinking that the Muscovali strategy of sending troops into the same kill zones repeatedly, time after time again, and we know that the entirety of Ukraine is a kill zone for Russian soldiers right now. Their strategy has not changed since the Battle of the Rate Road in the Winter War, Grozny 96, or today. So this mobilization is potentially good news for Ukraine and its allies, in the sense that the current Russian formations will be diluted, and an acceleration of the end of this at the end of this war can happen. So I share the sentiments of all the speakers here with regards to giving Ukraine ATACMS. It's absolutely necessary. Bring this war to the swiftest possible conclusion. Save as many lives. I have to respectively disagree with the previous speaker about the boiling pot strategy, throwing it out of the building. I mean, I know throwing it out of the building means giving Ukraine ATACMS, and rightly so, but perhaps perspective on what is working to bring this war to the swiftest possible conclusion and save as many lives as possible is important. Never in my lifetime has this brutal regime been put into the headlock that it is in now, or backed itself into the corner that it has as we speak. So this strategy of continuing to put Russia into this Gordian knot, this pressure, has led to the release of some prisoners. Heartbreaking, as we know, that some of them are left with life-changing injuries. But there is evidence that the enemy is making concessions whilst being defeated on the battlefield. It also begs the question if the lives of around 250 Ukrainian warriors, the Azov-style men and women of steel, can be negotiated by Ukraine's allies, then why are the lives of 3.5 million people currently deported to the Russian Federation, and 500,000 Ukrainian children currently declared as orphans in the Russian Federation after deportation? Why can't these people's and these children's lives be open for negotiation too? So yeah, I fully agree with all the sentiments shared here to give Ukraine the means to win on the battlefield in the swiftest possible way. But there also needs to be continuing pressure applied on this brutal regime and on the international organizations that have failed Ukraine. There are numerous in number. Those that are charged and have the remit of saving lives, ensuring that 500,000 children don't get deported, ensuring that 3.5 million Ukrainians don't get deported. These organizations have also failed. They also need pressure applied to them. So yeah, thank you for this space and your excellent co-hosting, Michelle. Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you so much.
Slava.
Go ahead, Colby. I was just going to mention too, I know that there's a few people that are waiting to come up as speakers, and Twitter is a bit glitchy tonight, so I'm not able to bring people up right now. So hopefully it starts working again. But we do have some hands up. And so Adrian, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. So I had a point on this idea of the reaction that the appropriate reaction that the government should have, U.S. government and Western governments in general should have to the I hate this word. I said it before, to the escalation caused by this announcement of mobilization. And I hate the word escalation because it has been used by useful idiots in the press to trick some people in the political sphere into being more cowardly when it comes to the necessary support given to Ukraine. First of all, yeah, I agree with Wendy. I mean, we are in agreement here. Give Ukraine whatever it needs, but this pressure, economic pressure put on Russia, and especially if you're talking about individual sanctions, the pressure put on its billionaire leadership, because all of them are billionaires who don't have access to their yachts, to their fancy houses in France and so on. I think it was conducive to releasing some of the prisoners. And yeah, I mean, a long-term goal is not only Ukraine's territorial integrity and Russia's defeat, but there are millions of people currently deported to Russia. And those people definitely need to come back. One of the worst things we could do next year is to have Russia out of Ukraine and make a peace compromise, the West to fall for a peace compromise that doesn't include the return of these kidnapped people. And that's like one of the prospects that frightens me the most when it comes to, because I fully believe that Ukraine will push Russia back. I am even reasonably confident that they will take back Crimea. But I am very, very worried about the 3.5 million people, 500,000 of whom are children. There's 5 million people, I'm not sure. Somebody talked about the population of Finland that are now currently kidnapped to Russia, and they should never be forgotten. But I wanted to speak about support. So in 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea and installed its puppets in the Donbass, the Obama administration had a possibility to act and to react. The sanctions that we have seen in February should have happened in February 2014. And unfortunately, there was a fight within the administration between the hawks and doves. President Biden was one of the hawks, insisting on a harsher treatment. President Obama, who was president at the time, chose to listen to the doves and to not give an appropriate and proportional reaction. And this is not the main reason why we are here today. This is one of the reasons we are here today, because another reason is Chancellor Merkel continuing to do business with Russia and working on Nord Stream 2, and many other quote-unquote collaborations between Western governments and Russia after they literally annexed the territory of a sovereign nation in the United Nations. And some of those doves are still left in the administration today, one of which is Jake Sullivan, who is a member of the National Security Council, and who publicly said several times that they are not giving ATACMS, that they are concerned that Ukraine will use them on the territory of Russia, which is, I'm sorry, but it plays exactly in the rhetoric of Russia and in their war aims, because Russia is currently trying to declare more Ukrainian territory as being Russia. So I know that that's not what he means, but in this very mumbled landscape of words and statements and propaganda, that sounds like a very cowardly and absolutely idiotic statement from a US official, especially in the face of Russia, because Russia reacts to force. Russia is a bully who reacts to a proportionate force. That's how they've acted for centuries. And Mr. Sullivan plays right into their bullying by saying, no, we're not going to send long-range missiles. No. And I'm not sure how much these discussions are still going on inside the administration, but these voices should have been quashed in March. I hope they have been quashed now, because I think this is something that prevents the proper support for Ukraine, because he made these public statements on ATACMS specifically. But if he made these public statements on ATACMS, I imagine that these doves in the administrations are also delaying when it comes to tanks, when it comes to IFVs, when it comes to fighter jets. And okay, tanks and IFVs maybe take a long tanks and jets maybe take a long time. But honestly, IFVs, Ukrainians are not stupid. You could teach them to use Bradleys in 2 weeks. The US had thousands upon thousands of Bradleys, both new and from the Gulf War era, which are way better than the BMPs they're running with. Though there was no reason not to have 500 Bradleys in theater already, and not to have Ukrainian soldiers going to the fight in vans and dying because they don't have the proper armor vehicles. I was made aware of a funeral of 3 Ukrainian soldiers in Kharkiv just a week and a half ago, because the successful offensive was successful, but they didn't have an IFV. They went in a van. And they died because their van was hit by actually an older RPG. If they were in a Bradley or any other armored vehicle, for that matter, they would likely have survived or most likely have been injured. But they're dead because they went to war in a van. And this is the responsibility of Chancellor Scholz, because he was told by Rheinmetall in March that they can send 100 infantry fighting vehicles. Then he didn't. And this is the responsibility of the doves as well, who are afraid of quote unquote escalation, because IFVs are something, and armored ambulances are something that the Ukrainians dearly need. And people are playing politics games with Ukrainian lives. And it's clear now that Russia has taken the gloves off in 2014, but nobody saw it. But what else do you need at this point to give them absolutely everything what they need? So I guess my long-winded point was also, please write if you're an American, write your congressman, write your representative, and also criticize the doves, because it's enough. We're dealing with a bully that is literally threatening our civilization. And these people are thinking, well, if we give them missiles, then they might attack targets in Russia. So what? Let them attack targets in Russia. Russia has attacked Europe. It has attacked the civilized world. What do you want to do? Fight with one hand tied behind your back? Because that's what they are asking Ukrainians to do. So I'm sorry for ranting, but fuck the doves. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adrian. I know everything you said like really resonated with me, and I know a lot of us on Twitter and other social media recently saw the children that were on the plane, and you mentioned that you're really worried for these children, and so am I. Like seeing those kids and just how scared they are, and not having any idea where their parents are, and so on. It's just heartbreaking. And to me, I just don't understand why more of the Western countries aren't enraged by this. Like, no one seems to be talking about it except for on Twitter or certain social media. But to me, like, I don't know, there just hasn't been a lot of discussion. So thank you for bringing that up, because I know a lot of this group probably already we're kind of preaching to everyone who does believe in the cause, and yet there's so many other people, I think a lot of friends and family and so on, everyone's just living their lives. So that's why a space like this is so important, to be able to share the information. And even if all of you can just retweet this space, that would be so helpful, and we appreciate it so much. So thank you, Adrian. I'm going to go on to Anda now.
Yes. I wanted to change the subject. So my idea was on sanctions, but not. I feel the need to say that 2 things about the children, because I, like Wendy and Adrian, brought this topic up, and it is a very important topic, as you said. Russia is fond of recording everything, so they know where the children went or are going. So we need to be really determined to make them give them back, because they cannot hide under the we don't know what happened with them. They do know what happened with each and every one of them. They do know where is each and every one of them. So we need to press further now and after the war to be returned. I was enormously glad the other day looking at the guys coming from um, imprisonment, but they are only 200, and only from Azovstal they took like 2,000. So we need to press further and ask for every Ukrainian to be returned, for every prisoner to be exchanged, and help Ukraine be free. That being said, let me return a bit on sanctions. I wanted to showcase a bit the fact that sanctions work. Even as Craig stated earlier, they pile up. So at first glance, you will say, well, I don't see anything. I don't see, I don't know, Russia dropping down or anything. But economic sanctions work on long term. It's like having a diesel as opposed to a jet fuel. So because Colby mentioned yesterday. Okay, so the point. Production of grains in Ukraine was pretty good this year, but heavily burdened by the shelling, because they also bombed and shelled everything, including fields, which meant some of the fields could not be easily harvested if they could be harvested. We also saw pictures and video clips in which they tried to extinguish, and they did extinguish some of the fires. They still have grains from last year, which are in silos, and they still have problems exporting this grain. And on the global market, you have an enormous quantity of grains which are transactioned, sorry, every year. It's this year, it will be a record year, and the amount is somewhere around 800 million tons of grains. This is all over the globe. Ukraine used to export per month 3.5 up to 5. The top was 6 tons of million tons of grains during summer, and they were not able to do that. The best that could be done in August was almost a million, so they exported 880 or something like that. In opposition, the biggest exporter of grain on global level wasn't Ukraine, was Russia. And grain was one of the sources of their income, just like oil. And this year, they will have problems because of the sanctions, but not as you think. The export of grains technically are not under sanctions, but the transporters are afraid to go in war zones. The bankers and the insurers don't want to work with the Russian firms. So even if this year they will have a record production of grains, they will not be able to export it. And this is a sideway manner in which the sanctions work, an indirect manner in which the sanctions work. On the global market, this will not mean famine. This is a burden for some countries which are not able to produce grain to the extent they need in their own country. Most countries do produce locally and import the difference. There are some countries, especially in south of Africa and also in China, which are not which need import of grains. So some of the ships that are being sent are sent from Ukraine right now to Africa and to China and to India. But it is really important, and really, I do stress this. We must not stop imposing sanctions on Russia. We must talk with our representatives in order to press on this. Also, in other news, to change the subject again, I live in Romania, and Romania is border with Ukraine and with Ukraine, with Moldavia. Sorry, and the foreign ministers of these countries, so ours and Ukraine and Moldavia, met in Odessa last week to have trilateral accord on energy and trade in order to help each other and support each other, and use all the necessary means to strengthen our economic bonds, and that will, I hope, further help Ukraine recover. So yeah, that was my rant for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anda. So we have Anony Mouse next.
Oh, hello, everyone. I just wanted to take the conversation back to weapons a little bit, if that's okay. Is that okay?
Sure.
Well, we all know that we had a Ramstein meeting not too long ago, and I'm sure the guys didn't just go over there to have a beer or drink tea or whatever they do. I had heard Sweden was reluctant to send the Archer. Is that correct? Does anyone have recollections on that?
So the Archer you're referring to, I believe it's a Swedish gun that is an artillery gun that's quite good. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so I believe you're right on what you just said, that they have not confirmed that they're sending it as of yet, which is unfortunate. It seems like a really nice gun. I know that Battle Moose back a few months ago was saying, I really hope Canada orders some of these, and then we send what we already have now to Ukraine, right? And I think one of the key things about the Archer that's really great is they don't have to leave the gun to operate it. Like they can do it completely inside the vehicle, which means number one, CJ hates me. He's gonna shoot an M777 at my house for saying the word shoot and scoot, but I'm gonna say it. You can shoot and scoot faster because you aren't getting out of the vehicle, and also it gets real cold, right? I'm assuming that's why Sweden put this feature in. And so you don't have to leave the vehicle and deal with the weather conditions outside. You can operate it easily in any weather conditions. Maybe not any, but you get the idea. So it's a great system. Go ahead, Anonymous.
So we heard they were reluctant to come or to send them. And 1 hour ago, Ukraine TV English just tweeted that they're on the front lines now.
Oh, so Archers are in Ukraine.
On the front lines.
What? That's awesome. That's great news. Oh my God.
UATV English, if you want to check their tweet from about an hour ago.
We'll definitely look into it.
So my point is, we're all urging more weapons. These guys sat down and met. I don't expect that we're going to get, us and the Russians are going to be getting heads up on new weapon systems until they're arrived and operational. Just like with Harms, there was no heads up. But I'm pretty confident that a lot of things were discussed, plans were made, and things are being put into operation, irrespective of how much we're being kept in the dark. So that was the first thing. And the second thing I just wanted to ask if anyone had some thoughts. When Ukraine wins, gets Crimea back, what actually happens to the Kerch then?
Gee whiz, what a question. I have no idea. As far as I understand, it's kind of a difficult bridge to even maintain. It's kind of expensive to maintain. So I don't know how Russia's going to do it. And I don't know if Ukraine's that interested in doing it. So, I mean, it might literally just rust out, but I have no actual idea. I'm not a bridge expert by any means, so I don't want to look into my crystal ball too far, but it's a great question. But that's my guess. It's a very expensive bridge to maintain. That's my broad understanding. And I just don't see how it'll be a priority for Russia, obviously, after this. So I think it'll just kind of rot out. I don't know.
I imagine it would be one hell of a task to actually blow the whole thing up completely and eradicate it.
Yeah, and if they try to invade from the Kerch Bridge, that'd be just so crazy. It would almost be worth it to try to let them, you know what I mean? It would be such a death trap for them to do it. So it's like spending the resources and time. I'm just saying, assuming you already own Crimea, you haven't taken out the bridge already in seizing Crimea. If you own Crimea now and the Kerch Bridge is just sitting there, what do? I think you just let it rust. But that's just my personal. I have no expertise here. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah, interesting. All right, I'll let someone else speak now. I just wanted to inform that some new weapons had arrived. Shiny new toys are always welcome.
Yeah, Archers are awesome. I'm really excited about that. So I can't wait to hear CJ's take on the new Archer information that we've gotten about them being on the front line. So thanks for letting us know, man.
No worries. All right, I'm actually going to step down. So enjoy the rest of your day or night, whatever it is for everybody.
Thanks a lot, man. Michelle, back to you.
Thanks, Joseph. So we have Max T with his hand up.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, cool. So I have two questions. One, I was just wondering, throughout the winter, do you guys think that the European countries are willing to like sustain the sanctions and stuff? I'm pretty sure they will be. But when I visited some relatives in Bucharest, which is in Romania, they were listening to this news channel, which I'm aware is mostly fake news, but like the main story they were running every day I was there was like, oh, we're not going to like withstand the winter or whatever. And these are also people that, you know, do not have favorable opinions on Russia after, you know, the communist period and stuff. And then just a quick comment on the bridge. I'm pretty sure like Ukraine will have no interest in maintaining it either. So after the war. So yeah, I just wanted to like ask that, like, you know, especially now as we get a little into like the colder months, or like, do you guys think the European public will be like continuing support for this? That's my only concern going forward. So
I see that Adrian's hands up, so I have a feeling he'll be able to answer your question, or at least comment.
Well, greetings from Bucharest. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, I mean, we do have, like any other country, we do have, unfortunately, Fox News had a toxic influence on the entire planet, and we have our own version of that. And we have a couple of channels that work on this fear mongering, which is weird. They're not even necessarily pro-Russian. They just, you know, do it for the headlines because, you know, we're gonna freeze this winter sounds more interesting than we're gonna figure something out, right? And I guess that's a problem in every country. Of course, higher prices are a concern. Inflation has touched us. I mean, the supermarket prices are. I moved back from Ukraine in March, and easily I saw a significant rise in the my weekly shopping bill. Energy costs are also rising. That's definitely true. Gas was always expensive. So these are things that we are definitely aware of. But at least in Romania, and I don't venture to speak for other countries, but at least in Romania, I see significant support, especially because there are still many Ukrainian refugees here. Many of them are amongst us. They work here. Their kids go to school here. And generally, most of the press is positive towards Ukraine, and also most of the people are positive towards Ukraine. Even the ones that complain, well, everything is expensive, but we hate the Russians even more. Romania is a small player in the European Union, so we don't have a big word on sanctions. But we definitely are not going to be the ones asking for them to be lifted, like our neighbor Hungary is doing now. But that's another story. And also, like, the government has a subsidy, is starting a subsidy program for lower income families to cover their energy bills. So we are there are other governments in the European Union who are doing this. The German government is doing it. Britain is not in the EU anymore, but they're doing it too. And several other countries are doing this. It will also depend on how the winter is, but personally, I doubt that any country will ask for lifting of sanctions, because especially now after Ukraine has been doing strides on the battlefield, Russia is showing weakness. It will be absolutely, and after all the atrocities that we're seeing every time, it will be political suicide for most European leaders to propose such things. I mean, even in Germany, there was a recent poll that said, where 75% of people said we approve supporting Ukraine even if it means higher prices for us, or something like that. So it was like that. And also, like here in Romania, personally for myself, but it applies for a lot of people, we have relatives in the countryside, and my family has a farm in the countryside, and we burn wood, and we have a big stockpile of wood. So there's many ways you can go around it. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but compared to what the Ukrainians will experience this winter, it's going to be a cakewalk. So yeah, I'll be very I understand your concern, but it's very good to, whenever you hear people saying that thing, it's good to push back, because Ukrainians are going to be in the cold, Ukrainians are going to be bombed, Ukrainians are going to have their economic, their livelihoods disrupted, and paying slightly higher energy prices in order to help them out is not only the moral thing to do, it's not even a big thing we could choose to do. So those are my thoughts from Romania.
I just want to say, yeah, it was an Antenna 3, and like I figured it was like a Fox News type thing. So yeah, but yeah, thanks a lot. That reassured me a lot. So yeah, thank you.
Antenna 3. Yeah, I was exactly when you were speaking, I was thinking about that one. So yeah, we know what we're talking about. And they're not even anti-Russian, anti-Ukraine or something. They're like sensationalist. So yeah, we have another channel that is worse and slightly pro-Russian, but is not as popular. It's like our version of OAN or something like that. Anyway, long-winded. But yeah, I mean, most people, that's my point. Like, even the more hardcore Romanian nationalists and so on, who are like, let's solve things in Romania first, they hate Russia. It's the ancestral memory of what Russia did and what Russia left us. So no. And especially because it's this dilemma, many of them, of the nationalists who might not be sympathetic to Ukraine, they really want Moldova to unite with Romania. They want Moldova back. But Russia now is very much attacking Moldova and doing bad things in Transnistria and so on. So it's this dilemma. How can you support, maybe they don't want to support Ukraine, but how can you support Russia when it's attacking our brothers in Moldova? You know what I mean? So it's, for Romanian, even the Romanians that are flaky in their support for Ukraine, which are in the minority, it's kind of difficult for them to make an argument of supporting Russia, because Russia is essentially not only attacking Ukraine, but is trying to undermine Moldova, which most of its citizens are Romanian speakers. So, but you know all this if you're in Romania, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, every time I've been there, I've seen graffiti saying Bessarabia e Romania. So yeah.
Indeed, thanks for the question.
And real quick, just maybe speaking broadly about Europe and energy, right, and the so-called, winter of doom or whatever Russia wants us to call it. I think broadly speaking, and maybe Ryan can speak to this a little bit, because I probably should just stay in my lane and not talk about gas and oil. But right now, as of now, Russia's self-sanctioning, right? They're saying no more gas. Sort of like a mobster. They're like, pipelines broken, I guess, right? So it doesn't really matter. I mean, ultimately a solution has to be found, but I think so far it's been we've sort of, Europe's exceeded expectations in terms of the amount of gas they've been able to store for the winter and the amount of gas they're able to import from other sources besides Russia. Like Germany was able to sort of convert these pipelines into like LNG terminals, liquid natural gas terminals, and like basically that sped things along quite nicely. And I don't know, Ryan, am I on the mark here? Go ahead.
Exactly. They're way ahead of the curve as far as, well, I should say they're ahead of schedule, not way ahead of schedule, with gas storage in Germany for the year. Part of that is driven by decreased consumption within Germany, but it's also because they've been able to supplant their original supply, which was coming from Nord Stream 1, with LNG deliveries from various numbers of countries and piped in gas from Norway. They're also converting the Nord Stream 2 onshore point in Germany to a regasification facility, which basically they're going to pull up floating regasification terminal, and then they can pull in an LNG tanker alongside that and bring in additional supplies that way. So Russia thought they were going to be able to use gas, or the refusal to supply and deliver gas to Europe, as an economic bludgeoning tool, and basically wage an economic war against Western Europe and allies of Ukraine, and it's essentially backfired and blown up in their face, partially because of the prices that they artificially drove so high, increased the desire for other suppliers to deliver to that market. But long term, those new relationships and business partnerships that are being forged will be a more permanent situation, because nobody wants to do business with somebody that tries to extort you or price gouge or just completely not supply any gas at all in the future. So Germany and some other countries have signed some long-term agreements, and just the overall higher price temporarily, the price shock of energy in general that was created by a wartime premium, has incentivized other producers to create more liquefaction facilities in their countries. Canada's doing it. Mexico's doing it in a joint partnership, and the U.S. is expanding some of their existing LNG terminals to include additional production trains. So long term, they thought they could make a gamble on this and play a game of chicken, and that Europe would blink first. And Europe has not blinked at all. And all of Europe's partners are more than willing to supply that energy market in Russia's absence. So it's really blowing up in their face.
Yeah, thanks for that detail, Ryan. And then maybe Adrian had something you wanted to add real quick, and then we can go back to Michelle's and Hans. Adrian, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, because Ryan is here, and I apologize if because I have a feeling this has been talked about at length yesterday. So just briefly, so we can go to the others. Tell us, what does this mean? This below $80 oil barrel price that happened yesterday. First of all, do you think it's gonna be a long term? I know it's bad for Russia, but briefly, how? And will it be sustainable? I mean, do you think it's long term, or just gonna see it stay under $80, or just slowly choke Russia? Thanks.
I think it's anybody who tells you they can predict what oil prices are going to be 6 months from now is probably either lying or grossly overestimating their knowledge. That said, I think these lower prices, or prices that we've seen now below $100 a barrel, are probably sustainable in the long term, because there is additional production coming online. There was a whole lot of oil and gas drilling that did not happen during 2020, and it pretty much crippled the energy markets because nobody was consuming those products, and it created a roller coaster effect of supply and demand, and there was some whiplash and kinks in the supply chain. Some of that stuff is now being ironed out, and there's also a bit of demand destruction going on, because when prices go that high, people change their standard habits. And here in America, for example, typically the summer months are considered the driving season, and a lot more gasoline and diesel is consumed. That's not happening, or it didn't happen this summer in the US, and prices in the US are remarkably lower than prices in Europe. So people are changing their behavioral patterns, taking public transit when they can, but just market uncertainty right now, and unusually high oil prices and refined product prices that we've had for the last 6 months have led to additional supply being available. So yeah, I think more than likely they'll stay under $100. Hopefully they'll stay under $80. Even a lot of the oil and gas companies, or the reasonable ones, don't like to see prices spike up too high too fast, because they know it has a pendulum effect of creating this demand destruction, and then they're constantly going through this roller coaster situation of prices are too high or prices are too low. So ideally, energy companies would prefer that prices are somewhere in that Goldilocks window of just right. $80 is more than enough for most oil and gas companies to turn a profit. It's certainly enough for countries like Saudi Arabia to turn a profit, and American energy producers can make a profit off of that as well. But frankly, personally speaking, the lower it goes, the better it gets for everybody involved in this situation, because at a certain point, Russia is not turning a profit, and the lower the oil prices are, the less funds that Russia has with which to perpetuate this war. So I think, yeah, they'll probably stay pretty stable in the 80, probably the $75 to $90 range, and 80 is more of that Goldilocks price point.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you so much, Ryan. So just a few quick announcements. We really appreciate all of you listeners who are tuning in right now. And please make sure that you retweet this space. We really appreciate it. And this is really to help just spread the word about what's going on in Ukraine. Also, if you could check out MriyaAid.org and see what they do. And if you're able to, please send whatever you can. Also, if you do want to come up and ask a question, press the microphone button, which is just on the bottom of the left corner. So thank you so much on behalf of Joseph and I. So I have Auntie here who has his hand up.
Thank you, and good morning. I noted a tweet from Language Learner where he said that the head of Mykolaiv administration had announced that Russian soldiers had reached a deal with the Ukrainian armed forces to sell them a Tiger armored car for $5,000. So that's nice. And the other thing I wanted to point out was that there was a story on in Helsingin Sanomat today, or was it probably today, that the conscription, the mobilization authorities in Russia aren't giving the guys their chance to say no, because they can show up at the door, and then after that the guys will have 30 minutes to pack before they head off to be borscht in Ukraine. So to someone who has studied military history for quite a long time, the first one that Russian soldiers, while they're at war with Ukraine, reach out to them and sell them an armored vehicle, that's mind-boggling. So if you're already following Language Learner, you would have seen the tweet. But if you're not, I suggest you do, because he does great updates on the military situation. But yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. Thank you. Sadly I need to go, but keep up the great work, guys.
Auntie, I had a follow-up question on that when I saw that tweet, and I'm still scratching my head trying to figure out what Russian soldiers in Ukraine are going to do with $5,000.
I think they're probably gonna try and reach the nearest airport and try to buy tickets away from Russia.
I asked CJ that question, and he said he thought they were going to learn or pay for some swimming lessons.
Or,